Hi, I'm Andy Schmuckler. I just read an article saying that Biden has decided to build a port uh, on Gaza that will be adequate to the job of getting a lot of aid in there, uh, and he's doing it without any reference to permission from Netanyahu and his government. They're going around Netanyahu and his government, and I think this is an important development. Here's how I've understood what Biden's done right and what Biden's done wrong with respect to this Gaza crisis. I thought that he was absolutely brilliant at the beginning. He had a two-phase move that he made. He connected with the Israeli people with a huge amount of how do I get this color right? Okay, a huge amount of compassion. They really got it. They really felt hugely grateful to him. He became, I think, the most popular politician in Israel. There were billboards, like in Tel Aviv, thanking the American president. And he was immediately trying to utilize the position that he had properly and beautifully earned to use it to get the Israelis to respond to the terribly traumatic, ugly thing that they had suffered in a constructive way. Vengeance, an eye for an eye. They're not real good for the world in general, which is why societies and religions have tried to take it out of the picture. And particularly, there were concerns because this was an Israeli government that had shown fascistic tendencies in a completely different realm that had nothing to do with Hamas or that judicial overhaul to essentially eliminate an independent judiciary. But he was trying to get them to think about what happens the day after, all kinds of things, and take into account, minimize the deaths to innocent civilians. Even though Hamas, of course, arranged everything so that they could not be hit without considerable damage to civilian life and superstructure, and has been their strategy. They use their people as a shield. But I thought it was brilliant. I actually wrote a piece. It was on Daily Kos, which I said I thought that the historians would long admire this 1-2 set of things that Biden did, creating that bond and then trying to use his political capital with the Israelis to get them to make their response a wise one. Then I watched with dismay as Biden made what I think is the most serious error of judgment in my eyes. I've been involved in national security decision-making circles, and I know there's a lot I don't know from my vantage point. But it looks to me like Biden should have figured out, not in the first few weeks when there was sort of a hiatus and the Israelis were mobilized, but not yet pounding the hell out of the Gazans. I think it became clear, at least by the first half of December, that Netanyahu was thumbing his nose at Biden. And Biden was continuing to put out word like uh, our aid to Israel is not conditional. That's a big mistake as far as I'm concerned. Why would you give up all your leverage? With a guy like Netanyahu, I mean, even if we only knew that he has shown himself to be in favor, a partisan in favor of helping Republicans, which that goes back to Obama's days. That would be a reason not to essentially make the United States hostage to the decisions that Netanyahu would make, who had no particular reason to take Biden's wishes into consideration. He didn't want to help Biden. In fact, he had a visible interest, Netanyahu did, in keeping the war going because the Israeli people are furious with him. And it's not a stupid calculation for Netanyahu to make that the longer the war goes on, the more I'm protected from being kicked out of power. So I think that Biden made a serious mistake as the Israeli response became the ugliness in response to the ugliness and the ongoing ugliness that got the world's attention and distracted them from the terrible things that Hamas had done. Biden should have played hardball, as far as I'm concerned. According to everything I know about how it's United States, Israel made itself ugly in the eyes of the world. They didn't do things they could have done to show a better face, and regardless of what they had to do in Gaza, they didn't do things like bring the settlers under control, which they could have done without giving up whatever they had to do with whatever the course of wisdom would have them do with Gaza. And if Israel got to be ugly in the eyes of the world, then Biden and the United States got to be ugly in the eyes of the world. That's what happened in that uncommitted vote in Michigan. People who are naturally supportive of Biden, including the Arab population of Dearborn, etc., they were sufficiently upset that that Netanyahu was behaving and his government were behaving like the fascist thugs that they are. And Biden was saying our aid is unconditional rather than distancing himself. Well, there have been some increasing signs of the distancing. The airdropping of food by the United States military into Gaza. I don't know how much good that did, but it wasn't done in conjunction with the Israelis, as far as I'm concerned. And now this idea of building a port, and I don't know how long that takes, but there are people starving to death apparently, and this is an urgent thing. But the article I read made stressed the point that this is something that Biden is doing, and he's essentially sticking it to Netanyahu. He is acting as the agent of the United States and not as an extension of Israel that provides them with the weapons regardless of what they do. And I think that's a step in the right direction. I do really wish that that Biden had made what I think was the right judgment earlier on, couple 3 months ago, as it became clear that the Netanyahu government was really not paying significant heed to what Biden said was called for. I think that was the time to use leverage and to It would be good for the United States image. It would be good for Biden's image. It would be good for Biden's electoral process. And it would be good for helping the Israelis, maybe, to either compel this government to behave better or push this government to the point where the Israeli people can replace it with something that reflects better that they're not just a fascist nation like you would think looking at this outfit. So I hope that I'm not over celebrating this building a port thing, but from the article, it looked like there's a break that's really starting to happen. And it's not as subtle as it was, and I hope it keeps on growing as far as it needs to separate the United States from an intolerable Israeli course of conduct that kills way too many people with way too little concern to achieve something which is way too little guaranteed and maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense and actually is contrary to the interests of Israel's survival itself. I think that this fascist government of Netanyahu fell into the trap set for them by the fascist Hamas people and has reduced the chances of Israel surviving for the long haul, which is just what Hamas wants. They want Palestine liberated from the river to the sea. They don't want a Jewish state there. And one of the things about fascism is it has a way of, like evil in general, actually. You can see it in a lot of good movies. The evil tends to bring down destruction upon itself. And that's what this Netanyahu government has been doing, not just to the Gazans, but to the prospects of Israel as well. So as a friend of Israel, if I had been president, as a friend of Israel, not to mention looking out for American national interests, I would have stuck it to Netanyahu back in December. But better late than never.